So we tried to keep him out. It's been 2 months since he's been in this podcast. And I did a joke open and mispronounced his name and then said some kind things and went back on them very quickly. But he found a trap door, a back door, or something. Mike Giardi back on Pat's Interference. And I guess we'll keep you here Thursday afternoon rolling into Pat's 49ers. How long do you want to stay today?
Make this as short as possible. You know, that's about all I can tolerate you for is like in short windows.
Yeah, you and my wife both. It's a shout out for you, Cheryl. Not my wife's name. But anyway, we have a big show today. Not because the Patriots 49ers is the biggest game of the weekend, unless you like to bet on the biggest underdogs of the weekend. Patriots are 10.5-point dogs. Only the 5th time this century that's happened. Fun fact, though, they're 2-2. Also a fun fact, Nick Bosa might be lining up opposite DeMontre Jacobs, who's someone who only came into our lives a couple of weeks ago, hasn't really played in the NFL football. Before we get to that, you and I chatted about this yesterday, which is Wednesday. Again, we're going to roll in like full game preview mode here today and get to a 3-2-1 breakdown and game picks and all that. Kyle Duggar, by the way, at the end of the show, 4-minute drill, he was awesome. But Jerod Mayo said something Wednesday morning, yesterday, that caught my ear and then led me to write a column, the headline of which was, does Jerod Mayo want the Patriots to start Drake Maye? I want you to answer that question first before we get going and everything else.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. And it's been like, Andrew, this has been going on for a while now. And it's, and I've talked about it before. I've written about it. I wrote about it again today to a certain degree. Despite the conversation about being on the same page, how many times have they said that they're on the same page? He's on the same page with Alex, on the same page with Elliott. I think Jerod Mayo has looked at Drake Maye since about mid-August and said, that's the guy who should be taking our snaps this year. That's the guy I want to hitch my wagon to. And I want to find out just what he's capable of. And then you go through 3 weeks where it's a tractor pull for the offense. And I don't put that all on the quarterback. In fact, I put a small fraction of that on the quarterback, which I think has annoyed some people. But like, watch the game, watch it with your eyes and tell me what could have happened differently if you had Patrick Mahomes back there. It still would probably look pretty ugly, guys. So, but I think Mayo has sort of made it clear. I think it goes back to he's outplayed Brissett for the 2 week thing. Like, really? You're going to say that publicly? You're committed to this veteran guy to come in here and be the stopgap until you can get some of these things out of Drake. And yet here we are, where every time he gets an opportunity, he even did it after the game on Thursday night, right? Where would you consider a quarterback change or something to that effect was the question. He's like, we'll see. Like he didn't have, no, Jacoby's my quarterback. Then, of course, Friday morning, after I think he has a conversation with other people, Jacoby's my quarterback for right now. So I just think that the writing has been on the wall for about a month now that that's what he wants to do, and he's being prevented from doing it.
So you just repicked the cherries that I picked and admitted to picking in the column for folks who are probably going, Boston sports media trying to stir stuff up, yada, 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 which if you're new to the show, you're going to find out very quickly that is not at all what's going on here. We have a lot of deep dive numbers and analytics and metrics and efficiencies and yada, yada. We get into the football here. The drama can say for itself. And when it does happen, I get to the root of that too, with a lot of stories at the end of some very, very bad seasons. We'll see what happens this year. But number one, I think it even goes back further than this, right? Like Mayo was the face of the defensive frustration behind the scenes last year when you had a pocket-bound quarterback who was turning the ball over, and Mac Jones, then it was Bailey Zappi, the defense, 2 guys on defense, starters, Adrian Phillips and Devon Gottschall, are telling me in December, oh, well, I guess we got to hold him to 0. And Mayo surely was saying the same things behind the scene. I know from other people he was frustrated. So naturally, you're going to be frustrated as a defense, which did not play well against the Jets. But the Patriots scored 3 points. Right, they barely score enough to beat Cincinnati. Jacoby Brissett, captain, nice guy, decent quarterback, but is not creating on his own. And the reason I don't think Mayo can pull him yet, is something you alluded to there. Elliott Wolf and Alex Van Pelt have lived the quarterback development plan. They know patience pays off. But Brissett has also not done enough to give the keys away. Like, you can't take him out of his hand when he goes, okay, so I'm getting hit 30 times. I'm getting pressured 48% of the time. And I've turned the ball over 0 times. No fumbles, no picks. And you want to sub me out because I'm not doing my job? What do you make of that against the backdrop of the whole Mac Jones experience? Because I do have to think that plays a role in this. Yes, like that, the whole season does, but especially Drake Maye and everything that they're doing and not doing right now like they did with Mac.
I think there are too many people that were in the organization for the 3 years that Mac Jones was here and saw how that got handled and saw how quickly that went sideways. That's like a hangover. It still lingers. It's on the wall somewhere. You know what I mean? Like they feel that.
Like a crime scene, Mac.
The tape is the yellow tape is there. It's like,
yeah.
And whether you think that that's right or not, they lived it and they saw how it really just ripped apart the organization and cost people jobs, including arguably the most successful coach in NFL history. So, yeah, they want to make sure, from Elliott Wolf's standpoint, and I think Alex is sort of the caretaker of that position. They want to make sure that when they turn it over to him, that he is equipped to deal with all that's going to come with it. The criticism, the pressure, the mistakes. Can he bounce back from that? All the different things. He's going to get hit a ton because I got news for you. Doesn't matter who's behind. Again, Michael Vick in his prime behind this offensive line would still be getting knocked down quite a bit. Like, that's how bad they are. So until that gets shored up, it's like, hey, as Alex told us on Friday of last week after the game, his best place right now is to watch on the sidelines. And I think that is the push and pull between he and Mayo, Wolf and Mayo, about how we're going to go about this thing.
And a couple loose ends to tie up here, because it wasn't just last year. It wasn't him going, I don't know, after the third game of the season. But again, Jacoby Brissett was not good against the Jets. He wasn't the worst offensive player. That was Ramondre Stevenson, who fumbled again, or anyone who basically played offensive line and was not named Mike Onwenu. But that lack of confidence, which he turned around, as you mentioned, Friday, is only a piece of the puzzle. The latest piece, and the quote was this, and I'll read it to you in its entirety, because this is important. This is what ultimately tipped me off, as I said yesterday morning, going, wow, he really wants to do this. The question was a follow-up to another question and said, hey, why don't you guys want to sign a veteran quarterback? Or do you have any interest in that? And he said, that's not in our current plans. So the follow-up was, okay, is Drake playing well enough in practice to make you feel disinclined to add this extra veteran quarterback layer of protection for him as a future of the franchise? Here's what Mayo said. Quote, he's looked good in practice, but once again, it's just practice. You want to get a guy like that, obviously, on the football field. But at this current time, I don't want to go back to that answer, but at this current time, we're just not looking to add any pieces at that spot. You want to get a guy like that, obviously, on the football field. And one more loose end to tie up, which was in the column. And this is, again, the point is to ask the question and look at the case, because I think there's a strong case to be made. Mayo wants to do this, and he's not, because of Elliott, Alex Van Pelt, and the fact that it's just not safe right now. The last one is this. On September 5th, he goes on Devon Godchaux's podcast. Good podcast. I enjoyed listening to it. This caught my ear. Quote, I'm talking about just extending plays. If you have that skill set, to me, that's the most important thing. That's Jerod Mayo talking about the quarterback position in 2024. What does Drake Maye do that Jacoby Brissett does not? Extend plays. It's not case closed, but the jury leaves, and I'm feeling pretty good.
Yes, the flip side of that is he took probably, and considering the amount of punishment the Patriots quarterbacks have taken this year, Drake probably took the worst freaking hit of all of them when he basically got sawed in half in that Jets game. And so, again, be careful what you wish for, because the ability to, at least to a certain degree, play on time. I know the offense is still slow, but, whatever, to be able to handle that pressure is something that Brissett has proved to be pretty good at to this point again. And I think if you put Drake in that situation, yeah, you might get your splash play. You might get the extended play, and you finally get a chunk play in the passing game that doesn't involve passing 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage to Hunter Henry and him having to take it 35 yards down the sideline on that tight end screen against Seattle. But there's also going to be the mistakes, and they could come by the boatload when you're facing that kind of pressure. So it's again, part of that balance of trying to figure out when is the right time. And unfortunately, with the way this offensive line is playing, they might never really truly have a right time. They might just have to say, all right, screw it. Just go, kid. Just see what happens. See if you can survive.
You always love the effort plan before we get to
right.
Forget Halloween, even October, which
Yes.
is not to say that's going to happen Sunday. Jacoby Brissett is going to start on Sunday, and then September is going to end. And, you can wake me up, and then they're going to play the Dolphins and the Texans, and we'll go on and on. The point of this is to put a bow on it. Why does this matter? It's not just because Jerod Mayo is the new head coach, and it's important to know what the head coach wants. And I think is tipping us off. He's telling us how he really feels in these comments here and there. and then it involves the franchise quarterback in Drake Maye, who's been waiting. To me, it's interesting to see, and this is conjecture, right? We're projecting, but you're picking up little tidbits. The power play behind the scenes. And this isn't to say Jerod Mayo's not making the call like others in the market have been, because I don't believe that. I think, though, there's Elliott, there's Alex Van Pelt, the head coach of the offense, Jerod, and then I'm curious about ownership, because we know Jerod is very close with ownership.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's a stretch to think that there might be pressure from on top as the Patriots, we'll say, crumble for now against the Jets. And as the season goes on, if they're not fannies in the seats, they say, we drafted this kid, you believe in him, what's the holdup? And Jerod shouldn't care about that. He might not. Hopefully he does not, about the ticket office. That's not his job. His job is to build the best football team and coach the players and provide a setting in which they can thrive and perform. And right now, no quarterback is thriving. They're just surviving behind this offensive line. And I think Drake Maye would throw more picks and take more sacks than Jacoby Brissett is, because he's a rookie and that's what he does. But he can't do that right yet, because it's just so undeniable how bad the situation is. And Jacoby Brissett is at least doing enough to say, you can't take the keys away from me. But given how I think he feels, I think it'll happen sooner than we expected, maybe even a week or two ago, based on all these comments.
I also think, and I wrote about this Wednesday in the Boston Sports Journal, and I went up to Brissett and I said, talk to me about 70-30, right? And that's the reps that they're breaking up with the first team. Brissett's getting 70, May's getting 30, and May, of course, getting other reps with the scout team and the second, whatever. He's getting more reps than that, but that's how they're breaking it up. They're the only team in the National Football League that's doing this. And Andrew, you've covered the team for a long time. You've covered the league for a long time. I've covered the league for a long time. I don't really recall this divide ever. Like, the starter gets 90 to 95% of the reps. That's just what happens. And the backup, even if the backup is someone highly thought of, Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, you go over here, man. We got a plan for you, and you're gonna do work on the side field, and you're gonna do work in the film room, and we're gonna give you projects. You're gonna do all these things, but like, we got to get the guy ready. And Jacoby, I used the word unique, and Jacoby basically stopped what he was doing, and that got the eyes got wide, the eyebrows went up a little bit, and he's like, he nods, and I'm like, right, it's unique, and he's like, it's very unique. And to his credit, he said, look, man, I can't stress on it. I can only control what I can control. If these are the reps I'm given, I got to do the best with them that I can, and that's that. And he unconvincingly said that he's getting enough reps, but again, there's a reason why everybody's done it this way. And I know people will poo-poo the idea, well, what's 20% of the reps? Well, if you got 5 reps and you're giving 1 away, and you do that over the course of a 2-hour practice, and how many reps is that? And then add it up times 3 during the course of the week. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, I don't know, like, he's a capable quarterback, but he's not a great quarterback. And maybe he needs that work, right? Maybe, and actually, and the flip side of this, and the thing that maybe I'm most concerned about now is Drake really getting enough work? Like, you're giving him this stuff and he's doing the scout team stuff, but like, is it a half measure? And I mean, eventually it'll be a full measure, because I would assume when the switch happens, 70-30 is out the window, and it's going to be 95 for Drake and it's going to be 5 for Jacoby. But until you get to that point, you know, how developed is he getting? They're walking a fine line, and quite frankly, at 1 and 2 with the way they're playing, I don't know that the walking the line is working all that well.
And let's take the practice reps that you just noted. 70% with the starters for Jacoby Brissett, 30% go to Drake Maye. Put that in game terms. You're going to have roughly 10 possessions a game. That's like giving Drake Maye 3 possessions in a game. That's significant, right? And that's unusual to play that with your starter and backup quarterback. Normally, as you said, starter gets all of them, even in a blowout. What does the backup get? Well, he gets the scraps. He gets what Drake Maye got at the end of that Jets game. That's normally how this works. That's not how it's going in practice. I will say, I do think those scout reps are valuable, and that you're facing A, the starting defense, but B, he doesn't know the coverage that's coming, right? He knows how to run the certain play and concepts, and he's impressing, according to guys I talked in the locker room here today. It's just, it is tough. And to your point about talking to Jacoby about that kind of look is his way of nodding while keeping his chin still. Like, I see you, I hear you. We're speaking the same language. Stop talking. I can't do it on the record. So it's there.
And he knows what he signed up for, but I think he's looking at what we're saying here, and that, you know, the people that are on the outside that are crying, well, you got to put May in there. The offense will be so much better if you're going in there. And he's saying, dude, it's not me, really. Like, Yeah. Could I have hit Hooper on the over? Sure. Was that a missed opportunity? Yeah. But by and large, I'm managing this the best way possible. And if you think that the other guy is going to do that, you're probably mistaken. I've seen a lot more football than he is. So I think he's just kind of like, I mean, I know why they're doing it, but like, I don't think that they really know what they're talking about here.
Yeah. And it's, I just want to be clear again. I'm excited to see Drake Maye.
Oh, we all are.
Drake Maye believer. I don't want to rush him out there now because I don't, like Elliot Wolf does not, want his confidence to be broken in a way that Jacoby Brissett is used to stepping into these fires. And this is a kitchen that just, Drake Maye has never experienced before, let alone all of the hits. Like the Patriots just need to do better. Do better than 10 quarterback hits per game. Do better than a pressure rate of 48.5%. Jacoby Brissett is surviving that. 0 turnovers. That's not the bar for success. He needs to be better, of course. But that bar is going to come crashing down on Drake Maye if he was subjected to these same circumstances. It won't be perfect. The protection is never going to be good based on his talent level, but it should and could be better. That's what I want to wait for. Just be better. That's all. Yep. That's all we're asking for.
Yep, 100%. All right.
Speaking of better, earlier this week I did a Patriots solutions draft with Doug Kai. Most of them were quick fixes. Some people quibbled with, the first problem's left tackle. Like that's not so easy to fix. It would be if we were in charge, because Donovan Smith this year, we're getting some warm body in the room that's not Tremontre Jacobs or a limping Caden Wallace. If you were in Doug's place, what were like 1 or 2 quick fixes you see available to this team? Players, play calling, coaching, whatever it might be.
Yeah, so some of this stuff is going to come up in the things that we do later on. So my initial reaction to quick fixes, there are none. I'm serious.
So we came up in your feed and you're like, next.
Yeah, no, I just I understand the point. And like I said, some of the things that I think they need to do better will come up when we talk offense and defense specific. But to me, this is the roster that you created. This is what you decided to roll out there. You decided that Chuks Okorafor could be a left tackle, even though he'd never been a left tackle at Pittsburgh. You decided that Caden Wallace, whether you decided or whether it got decided for you because of how the draft played out, well, maybe he can play left tackle. And that obviously, rough situation for him to be in on Thursday night, but that did not go very well. So once again, we sit here and we're pining for Vidarian Lowe. Now, as much as I love Vidarian's story and I appreciate his improvement this year,
he's got a good personality, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think he's gotten better. I actually think he's light years ahead of where he was last year. But what's the cap on what he is, right? I mean, he's a person who said to us in August, I thought I was going to make the NFL as a swing tackle. And I'm thinking, hey, buddy, you're the starting left tackle for the Patriots, and you're going to be protecting eventually the number 3 pick in the draft. You can't tell me that anybody in Foxboro, Elliot, Matt, Jerod, thought that, man, we really need Vidarian out there. There's no way that was a big part of the plan, but that's where they are. And you get all these people who will tell you, I don't know if they slide into your comments. We get it on the membership. We're like, can't they just find somebody who can block for 2.5, 3 seconds? I'm like, dude, if they could, they would. But the problem is there aren't many of those guys. Left tackles don't just, fall off as my grandmother would say, the turnip truck. They didn't just fall off the turnip truck. I'm embracing that. I'm old. This is your roster. Now you got to make do with it. You got to figure out a way to survive it. Because in some places, that's really what you're trying to do is just survive it.
Would you do anything on defense?
I mean, I don't love the plan next to Godchow, and they're extending those guys. And I think that's been a topic of conversation here in the last 24 hours I know Doug was talking about that today. Mm-hmm. Some other people as well, putting a lot of responsibility on those guys' shoulders. And I'm not sure that they're that kind of player, but
what that means is Daniel Akewale is playing 74% of the snaps and is on pace to more than double his career snaps in a single season, something I talked to him about today.
Yeah, I just don't think he's that kind of player. And I think he's an NFL player. Don't get me wrong. A couple of years ago, I was like, I wouldn't cut this guy. I think he's a good football player. He's one of your best 53. I think he is one of your best 53, but that's too much.
Yeah. And they're trying to rotate players like Eric Johnson, who they claimed off waivers from the Colts, and he's got a big body. I think he's 6'2", 320. But he was learning a very different system, as Jerry Montgomery, their defensive line coach, explained to us today. all these other guys have had hundreds of reps with our techniques, how we want to play. And this is a hybrid. Sometimes you're single gapping, other times you're two gapping. And like those guys in the middle have different responsibilities than the guys in the middle of Gus Bradley's 4 down, cover 3 defense in Indianapolis. It's just based on different principles and techniques. So he's going to need time.
I hate Gus Bradley. Well, I hate his defense. I don't know. I know Gus personally, but I hate his defense.
Yeah, that shit fell off the turnip truck. But it's just different. The thing is, just like in the offensive line, the Patriots don't have time or really bodies behind Devon Gotcha or even next to him if Daniel Ekuale, God forbid, went down. So it's a little tricky. Speaking of tricky, buying tickets, Mike, I don't know if you go to shows. I know you go to games, but typically you get to go for free. You're working. Yes. For folks who don't get to go for free like you and me, I would suggest they go to Game Time. Yes, because they support this podcast. And I want you to support them. Also because when I look for tickets to games, shows, concerts, whatever, I just want the lowest price. And at Game Time, the lowest price is freaking guaranteed. And if you find a lower price elsewhere for a Patriots game or whatever ticket you want to buy, they will give you 110% of the difference in credit if you find a lower price. Not to mention, when you go there, you don't have to deal with the pesky price and fees and everything at the end. It's all in pricing with Game Time Picks, which filters out all the fluff. It only gives you incredible deals, great seats. You don't have to waste time, whether it's the upcoming game against Miami or Houston or the Jets at the end of the month. You can get to Gillette for the lowest price anywhere at Game Time. So do it today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS for a free $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Just create an account, redeem code CLNS for $20 off. It's like finding a $20 bill in your pocket, except it says Game Time on it. So download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. It's almost game time.
Give it a pause for a second. I'm going to compliment you. That was an elite read. Elite.
Thank you. I've had some practice. Though I think the folks hearing that are sick of me, and it's not anything to do with Game Time, which has been very good to us. And again, I'm looking actively for a Jaguars friend of mine. Say that carefully. And he's going to come to London. We're going to have a great time. And I'm every day in Game Time because I go to other places just to check. I want that 110% of the difference if I can find it elsewhere, and I have it.
Plus the free $20 if you're a first time sign up there. Sign up.
There you go.
That was well said.
That was first class by you.
I kind of like it actually. Sign up.
Sign up. Okay. Yeah. Let's move on to an actual game. Patriots going on the road. 10.5-point dogs. Again, 5th time this century. And they are facing a banged up 49ers team. But even banged up, the Niners, who are also 1-2, are still 7th in offense by DVOA. They're 19th in defense, 30th in special teams. Here's their schedule so far. Last weekend, they lost 27-24 at the Rams in a game they more or less gave away. Great job by Matthew Stafford. Bad job by everyone in red, or garnet and gold and whatever they call it. Before that, they lost 23-17 at Minnesota. And in their opener, beat the Jets on Monday Night Football, 32-19. The Patriots, meanwhile, also 1-2, 21st in offense, 26th on defense, 10th in special teams. I want to start with the real chess match here, something I thought I was going to sink my teeth into before talking about Drake Maye and Jerod Mayo, which is a Patriots staff that's had extra time to prepare for one of the best offensive minds in football. Say we will about the game management, playing from behind. Kyle Shanahan is in the top 3 of your offensive designers, minds, play callers, whoever you are. He's on that top 3. When the Niners have the ball, though, for a run-first offense, they've not been as efficient at that. They're 4th in passing by DVOA offensively. They're 21st when running, despite the fact that new running back Jordan Mason, in for Christian McCaffrey, is 1st in the NFL in missed tackles forced and runs over 10 yards. So, all that being said, I want to start in the obvious place. What do you do with Christian Gonzalez? Because I talked about this with Doug, and this again is part of the chess match, which we'll get into. Jerod Mayo with extra time to prepare against Kyle Shanahan. DeMarcus Covington's very confident. Like, they're ready to bounce back. They think they will. If I'm the Niners, I go, there are 2 things constant about this defense. Number 1, Christian Gonzalez is shadowing the number 1 receiver. Number 2, around their man-to-man calls, they're playing a lot of cover 2. So what do you do with Christian Gonzalez? Do you stick with the plan? And is it Juwan Jennings who leads them in every receiving category, or is it Brandon Ayuk?
My first inclination would just say leave him as a boundary corner for this game.
Boundary corner, okay.
Yeah,
small side of the field, short side of the field.
Yeah. Look, I kind of toyed with the idea of not Ayuk but Jennings. If I was going to do the matchup thing, is this a scenario? And I kind of thought maybe this might come into play against the Jets, where you take the smaller John Jones, you put him on Garrett Wilson, and then have help over the top. But in this case, Juwan Jennings, a bigger guy, so maybe Gonzalez is, if you want to go that route, that's the matchup you do. And then with Ayuk, you're doing help and John Jones. Although the way Ayuk's playing currently, the way he's running and having actually some difficulty consistently separating, and then he's already got the drops this year. Maybe you can actually get away with one. I don't know if you want to try that, but John still runs pretty well, and it's not like this massive size mismatch like we saw some of those against some of the Jets receivers with Mike Williams and Alan Lazard. So that would be my secondary option. I just think at this point, probably the smartest thing is just to leave him to the boundary. And then look, if they start to exploit away from him, then maybe that's when you make the change.
Yeah. DeMarcus Covington talked to us today. He described all their receivers and pass catchers and running backs as go-to guys. Obviously, that's not true, but it feels like it because Juwan Jennings went off for 11 catches, 175 yards, and 3 touchdowns in that loss to the Rams last weekend. Part of that is because he's 6'3" and 212 pounds. Not as big as 6'5" Alan Lazard, who, I don't know, bruised Alex Austin so badly that he's not practicing anytime this week and still being dragged behind Alan Lazard en route to the end zone. Jonathan Jones plays bigger than his listed 5'9" size. I still don't feel really comfortable with that matchup. And I talked about this last week with James White. I like Christian Gonzalez now on the number 2 and then doubling the number 1. But in this situation, I still treat Ayuk as the number 1, partly because I believe in John Jones and that smaller size difference, right? Him versus Ayuk, and then maybe a safety over the top. But I just think Christian Gonzalez is flat out better than Juwan Jennings, those numbers notwithstanding. The only tricky part is he'll be in the slot more than a lot of the other number 1 receivers he might see. And offenses like move guys around. It's not always, oh, you're the Z and you're the strong side and you're the X and the weak side. But I don't want him in a ton of run fits because he will miss tackles. He's not a particularly physical player. But in passing situations, that's the matchup I want. It's just interesting because they've not pivoted at all from the, okay, Christian, you're following this guy this week. Like the 2019 Steph Gilmore playbook. Yeah,
I asked Christian today, just like, hey, when do you generally find out? And he's like, sometimes Wednesday morning, but sometimes Tuesday. I'm like, you get the text? He's like, oh yeah. I was like, you get excited about it? He's like, yeah, because you can watch film differently. I mean, not that you can't, you still have to watch the whole thing, but he's like, as the guys that have come before him, Revis and Steph have talked about, then you just get into that one guy. And it's like, you're literally watching him walk back to the huddle. You're watching all the angles of the all 22s. What tell can I, hey, when he breaks from the huddle a split second early, does that mean he's going to go to the left side and run like they're literally trying to break down and find any sort of tells that they can possibly find. But he would not reveal whether or not he was going to go. But as he mentioned, he said, of course, like that's what you want as a cornerback. You want that assignment. So he had a lot of nice things to say about Ayuk, but he also had a lot of nice things to say about Jennings. So no real clues there from him.
So I have a habit of reading into things a little bit too much. This is when you wake up and you think, and right before you go to sleep, you're still thinking, and you just do this all day and all day and all day like I do. He paused for a second when I asked him yesterday about Ayuk. He's like, oh, he's a good receiver. Not in the over-the-top, flowery way you might say of a guy that you would be shadowing. And I'm not taking that to the bank as a tell that it's definitively not going to happen. But the reason he might pause is because Brandon Ayuk right now does not look like Brandon Ayuk at all. This is a dude who has not cracked 50 yards in a single game. He doesn't have a touchdown. And I think Brandon Ayuk is going to be that receiver eventually. He's only 26. He's coming off consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. His success rates against man coverage and zone are both in the 90th percentile or above. So this is an elite dude. But right now, week 4, September 29th, 2024, in Santa Clara where they're going to play, that's not the guy you're going to be facing. That's why I think I'd be more comfortable with that. But I generally don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah, I don't either. But the one thing you do know is that whatever they decide to do, Shanahan will be ready for it, and he'll have some sort of way to minimize, if he's traveling with someone, minimize the effect of it. I think the other thing here that's interesting, and I would imagine Kittle's not going to play. I know he was limited, but I think with the hamstring, feels like this might be buy him another week before you put him out there.
Yeah,
and that certainly changes things as well because they're not. I mean, there's no George Kittle on the roster. If George Kittle is not playing, the backup cannot even remotely come close to being a facsimile of George Kittle.
Can you spell facsimile?
is it FAC? I forget. It's the C before the S or the S before the C. I think
it was
it's
a real jerk move by me.
I think it's the C before the S, right? Because then it's fact, simile. Yeah. And then you see, I nailed it. I had to think it through.
Just tell me to go facsimile myself and we can
yes, I got something for you.
Yeah. So the other part of the passing game, obviously, whatever the coverage matchups are in the back end, you're right. Like they're going to have counters, they're going to have answers. The issue to me is more protection. Like the Patriots need to win that X's and O's battle in a way that in week 2, old pal Brian Flores crushed the Niners. Absolutely. Through the kitchen sink, ripped the sink out of the bathroom, took out all of the plumbing and just threw it at Brock Purdy, who was spinning and had no idea, and a lot of dirty water around him. And obviously they lose, and the Niners go home and are just shocked because they were huge favorites going into that game against Minnesota. The Patriots cannot copy and paste that plan because they just don't have as many dudes on that as the Vikings do on that defense. But what they can do is implement a lot of those similar pressure concepts, which look like one thing and obviously bounce into another. This, though, gets at the heart of what you and I have been talking about. You asked Covington about this today. Hey, what's going on with your blitzes? Like there's something missing here that you're just not getting home or they're calling them out. The other part about that is they played a lot more too high, the Vikings did. And then that gets into a discussion about the run game. How would you go about this generally? Because Purdy's been good against pressure. He's still worse than he is in a clean pocket, like all other quarterbacks. How do you win that matchup, which I think is a battleground that's just non-negotiable for the Patriots on Sunday?
Well, I mean, I look at McKivitz, the right tackle, and say he's not been good, not by any metric whatsoever, struggling. And it's interesting if you go back and sort of watch some of the cut-ups, it's sometimes it's just straight up one-on-one getting beat. Sometimes they're not passing off the games properly and he's making mistakes there. He looks a little slow. So I don't know if you want to take Keon and put him over there and just say, go nuts on this guy like the Patriots used to do with right. Well, I mean, there's been that comparison to Trey Flowers, and like maybe that's not, people think that Keon has a higher ceiling than that, but like Trey used to do some evil stuff to guys, and like they would go into weeks. There was like a 2-year period there where they were going to be like, all right, left guard sucks. You're going to line up over the left guard in obvious passing situations, beat the crap out of him, and he would. And this might be one of those situations where they go, Keon's our best guy. He is their weakest link. And when we know that we're going to be in pass rushing situations, but it could just be for the duration, put him across from him and just let him just tear that guy apart. And then that gives us the opportunity, maybe if we feel like we have such a big advantage there, that we can play some games elsewhere. And maybe that's where you get Uche free or whatever, work some games there that you get some other pressure.
Let me put it like this. Can the Patriots win if Keon White has a bad game?
No.
All right, there it is.
No, and I would say I think you could also just loop the edge group into that, because they were especially bad against the Jets. They weren't terrific against Seattle either, and that's a run pass game thing as well, where they're not setting the edge there. And Anthony Jennings is, he's limited as well. Whether he's going to be good to go or not, I don't know. But your best edge setter as a run defender is him, and he might not play against a team that can run the football pretty well. That would be concerning as well.
So one name we have not said yet, and then we'll get into the last part of this and move when the Patriots have the ball, is Deebo Samuel, who missed last week with a calf injury, did not practice on Wednesday with a calf injury. It would be a surprise to me that if he plays. And so just in my mind, for the sake of this podcast, he's going to be out. Kittle maybe a little bit closer, but as you said, hamstrings are finicky. I'm not going to play these games. I'm just going to imagine, for simplicity's sake, and what I think is really going to happen, neither of those guys are in, which again is why we focused on Juwan Jennings and Brandon Ayuk, because those 4 lead them in catches. Would you care to guess who is the 49ers' 5th leading pass catcher right now by receptions?
Is it the tight end's name? The tight end, the backup? What's his name? Seibert?
No, it's Kyle Juszczyk, who's an excellent player.
Yeah. He's a very good player.
And he has 6 catches. So to me, when we talk about and start with what is Christian Gonzalez doing? Okay, what are you winning in pass protection? This is a very simple game in my mind defensively for the Patriots, because it is about Juwan Jennings. It is about Brandon Ayuk in the pass game. That, of course, is going to be set up by how often do they go pass heavy on first down, and what do they want to do, again, in these standard neutral downs that, the Patriots need to win, again, to get them into longer passing situations and unlock or copy and paste, whatever Flores did a couple weeks ago in Minnesota. But that starts, again, of course, with Jordan Mason, who I mentioned is replaced Christian McCaffrey. He's creating on his own. He's getting longer runs. This is good. The thing is, though, despite all of that, they're 21st when rushing the ball by DVOA. And they're not running away with games except for that opener against the Jets. So I think they'll be more inclined to run at the Patriots in light of the defensive tackle issues that we just described. Raekwon McMillan is still in there for Juwan Bentley. And the fact that the Jets made the Patriots defense bulk up with 21 snaps of old school, big ass, base defense, 3-4, baby. And they had success running at it. I don't have the success rate off the top of my head, but they look at that and go, okay, you want to play bully ball with us. You want to play bully ball with us. We will play bully ball with you and just keep hammering it away, knowing we'll wear on you. We have God knows how many run schemes. And that is an area where I still would prioritize Ayuk and Jennings, but you can't afford to lose that. And I don't have a great solution other than they just really have to show up front.
Yeah. And look, the linebacker play was, you want to talk about, again, diving into things. The linebacker play against the Jets was not very good at all. A lot of missed tackles between Tavai and McMillan. McMillan looked light against the run, and that's a concern because obviously Juwan Bentley probably done for the year. I haven't heard of too many guys coming back from a torn pec in a few months. And even by that point, like, what are we talking about in December? So they got to be better. But it might help if they're kept clean by some of the big guys in front of them.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I mean, they also have to tackle better, which goes without saying. We spent a lot of time since then. Patriots missed 12 tackles. They had one game with more than 12 tackles missed since the start of 2021. Like, I'm just going to say you get one of those every once in a while and what happened. But the chief offenders with the missed tackles were Jelani Tavai, who's going to play both the edge and off ball, and then Raekwon McMillan, followed by Marcellus Dial, who's just not really going to play a whole lot in this game.
Right.
So I would say they need to wrap up. That is your answer here. Like, at first contact, you need to take Jordan Mason down in a way that other defenses have not, because you just can't give those yards away to a San Francisco offense that, by the way, is built on yards after the catch and hasn't been great at that so far this year. So you're catching them at a good time health-wise, and whatever they're doing to spring their receivers open is not really working. So don't let the running backs do the same thing. I don't think we missed anything, did we?
No. And I was just going to say, though, the one thing that would – so I'm with you. I look at the missed tackles and even the sort of the blown edges and say, like, these guys have been around. Like, I've trusted them to be able to do this. They've done this in years past. I mean, it's basically the same crew. That happens again. Then I start to worry about if the message is getting across. And we were real big in the first couple of weeks of like, well, they're playing hard for them. They bought in. Then you have a stinker like Thursday. And look, this isn't an easy spot, even with all the injuries that San Francisco has. But like, you've had 10 days to stew on this thing and realize, like, that's not who we are. But we put that out there on tape. Don't put it out there on tape again, because then I'm going to start sounding some alarms.
Speaking of alarms, Deebo Samuel's at practice today.
Uh-oh.
So we can.
I know. I was with you. I mean, I pretty much dismissed the notion that either Kittle or Deebo were going to play this week.
And look, that does not mean he's missed the last 4 practices. Calves are I think, the hamstrings a little finicky. Like, they will flare up at a second that you don't expect if you overwork them or go too soon. And the Niners, again, it's 10.5 point favorites. Desperate, playing at home, we can beat you without Deebo. But there's maybe a little bit bigger chance than I thought when I said whatever I did 10 minutes ago. If I'm just going to, for simplicity's sake.
That was more like 3 minutes ago, but yeah.
Yeah. Good work by me. Moving on. Speaking of good work, Patriots offense. They are, their rankings are higher than you would expect by DVOA. Small sample. Yeah. You can go by scoring, you can go by whatever. EPA is great. But here's the DVOA rankings. They're 26th in passing, 19th when running. San Francisco's defense, not hot. 15th against the pass, 24th against the run. And that bottom 10 ranking holds up when you look at yards per carry allowed. Actually, they're 21st, but they're below average yards per carry allowed, 4.5 this year. And they are actually bottom 10 by Pro Football Focus grades. So I want to get into play calling. I wanted to get into Bosa, but we all know the Patriots need to run the ball to win this game. How confident are you with the Niners missing Javon Hargrave, defensive tackle, and not having great numbers when he was in there, that they can move the ball and do what they couldn't do against the Jets on Thursday?
I am moderately confident that they can do that. And I think we saw them move people the first 2 weeks. I think I know I certainly complained about it quite a bit, and it still kind of offends me that they didn't attempt to run the football much early in that Jets game and help contribute to the negative game script, which of course they are not equipped to handle. And I'm hoping that, as Alex Van Pelt said, he's learning, he learns his lessons, and he, as he said, I should have probably run the ball a little bit more early against the Jets. And hopefully he takes that with him when he goes into San Francisco, because it is the one thing on offense that they've done with any sort of success at all this season. And just do it. Just do it, man. That's how you're built. That's how you're going to have to be in games. That's how you're going to have to win games. So that's what you got to do.
Can we stop there for a second? Because the fact that Alex Van Pelt is, I would say, the last two games called the subpar game, not great. Yeah. What not is great. Nice and refreshing, and I think folks at home should want this, is a coach who owns up to that publicly and shows a little bit of humility. And everything that I've learned about Alex Van Pelt, talking with him, talking to people around him, getting to know his background, I was like, that's who the dude is. You do not get that from many NFL coaches, let alone coordinators or people who have been in the league longer than my lifetime, which is what Alex Van Pelt has been doing. So when he says Thursday, today, oh yeah, I could have been better, I'm going to learn from my mistakes, that stinks because he made a mistake in the first place. And if you're at home and you're pissed, be pissed. But it's nice to hear that when there were certain mistakes made by previous regime and coaches that would never fess up. And then we come off as a bad guy because we're pointing it out. But eventually, we're all watching the same thing. And if you own it, you can fix it. And there's no extra mess. So I just appreciate Alex Van Pelt saying that, not because it makes my job easier. He's nice to me as the media. It's just like we should all take that with our mistakes, especially publicly.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And look, he, despite being in the league for a long time, as we've talked about before, he hadn't called plays regularly since 2009, and that was a bleep show. I mean, literally, the offensive coordinator got fired right before the season. So it was like, oh, and you're going to call the plays. So it wasn't even like he was prepared to be that guy, and he had to learn on the fly, and that season didn't go very well, and sort of bounced around since. But this is his first real crack at it. And look, I know you have. I've talked to experienced play callers. I've talked to Dable. I've talked to McDaniels. I've talked to Billy O about that, and they will all tell you, you're never comfortable in this job. You always go to bed, should I do? You're in that place where you're like, I think I've got us prepared, but I don't know. And then of course, first play, somebody blows out a knee, and then the whole thing that you worked on is already out the window, and then you got to adjust on the fly like that. So that's a difficult job. But he's got to do it better, but he knows it, and he's telling us that.
Yeah, and he even said after the first week he didn't have enough plays on his play sheet, which you're going at home, and I'm sitting there going, "Are you serious?"
Yeah.
Which they expected in that game. Cincinnati would say won. So if you're a results oriented person, you don't care. But I'm going, okay, how does that happen? But they were caught off by guard by how little the Bengals blitzed them, just twice in that game, and I'm going, why would they blitz you? Your offensive line stinks. The goal is just to get one-on-ones or let Trey Hendrickson go to town. Anyway, to answer my own question, I am also moderately confident Patriots will run the ball because Hargrave is gone. Their numbers, again, are not good. 4.5 yards allowed per carry by San Francisco, and they can load the box, and that's cool. But the Patriots are averaging 6 yards per carry when they hand the ball off to Ramondre Stevenson, and he goes behind Mike Onwenu. And they love this pep play, this weak inside zone. So you put the tight ends on the left side, and you have inside zone or even sometimes wide zone going to the right. So it's Mike Onwenu against who's ever on the edge. If he wins that matchup, you're off to daylight. And that's what Stevenson has done. And I think they can do that almost against anyone. The key to me, though, will be blocking Fred Warner. This dude is probably the best linebacker in football. He also has 3 forced fumbles this year. Oh, 3 fumbles. Where have I heard that before? It's from Andre Stevenson. That can't happen. We're going to do prize picks in a second, more or less, and yards and this, whatever. He cannot put the ball on the ground. If he does, they should bench him for the rest of the game. I think that's obvious. But the Niners are going to be swarming and punching, and Fred Warner is going to be there. So whatever the play is, whatever direction, they have to block him.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. My podcast partner, Will Parkinson, for the All 32 pod, was making the argument last week that Fred Warner might be the best player in the league.
Wow.
And when you look at just how much better he is at linebacker than pretty much everyone else and the impact that he makes, and he doesn't come off the field for them, okay, I can start to have that conversation. I'm intrigued by it at least from that side of the ball. Of course, I'm always going to take a quarterback because that's just that's where it all starts and ends as far as I'm concerned. But like he's a terrific football player, great instincts. How do you occupy him? Not too many teams fool him. You know, it was crazy. If you look at their numbers in the last game, they weren't even on the field that much. I think the offense had it was 71 plays to 58 plays. Like they just some systematic breakdowns there that they have to clean up.
So we mentioned Van Pelt. I want to circle back to him, hit this, and then get to the one matchup that more than Keon White against whomever, I think it could decide the game, even if it's neutral. Alex Van Pelt, what do you want to see from this game plan? Which so far from every offensive player I've talked to, who of course is not going to say, "Hey, Callahan, by the way, our plan this week sucks. I think it's terrible." They all love it. They are thoroughly excited about this plan. Jacoby Brissett has even said, we're going to figure out what our best runs are. We've done that. And then we're going to build play action off of that. It's not revolutionary, but whatever. What is your opening script? What are your adjustments with the play calling? Was there sequencing? What do you want to see from Alex Van Pelt on Sunday?
So look, to me, the play action stuff is a little risky because as we certainly saw against the Jets, they didn't really respect your play action all that much. And it led to some, god awful plays and hits on Brissett. But you certainly would, if you start to feel some confidence in that, would like to see a little bit more of that. I think the other thing for me, that the passing offense has looked its best. There was a stretch, and I the way I chart games is probably would screw people up, but like from play 5 to play 14 pass plays against Seattle, it was quick. And that was as good as their pass game has looked the entire season. The ball was coming out quickly. Brissett was protected. He was I kept running clean in the pocket, which pretty much before that and after that, I haven't been able to do for the entirety of the season. Like, look, I understand that there's probably there are limitations to that. Eventually teams will creep up, but okay, then that's why Taekwon's here. Like, can you get over the top of the guy one time? They got their longest play against the Jets was a pass interference on Taekwon. So like, even if he didn't get the catch, he at least drew the call. So to me, that's what I want to see more of. I want it like if you were 5 for 5 or 6 for 6, I forget the number off the top of my head in the quick game the other day. Like, give me more of that. Give me some more of those looks, and whether you can double that, I don't know, but like, do that. And maybe you get a couple successful drives out of it. I need to, in addition to the run, that's sort of where I'm at with the passing game.
So you say quick game, I say quick pace. And there's a real downside here where you go 3 and out in 30 seconds. And this looks bad. But if they want to establish more of their outside zone game, you and I both remember late, even like mid-late in the Josh McDaniels era, that was their pet play in short yardage and at the goal line. Hurry up. Go outside zone. It's everyone's going to space, or you identify who you're going to block, and then it's one cut and run. And you don't need to figure out what man you have or the angle you're taking, whatever the front is. You just hike and go. I like that. Now, granted, San Francisco's seeing a lot of wide zone because they're facing a Shanahan offense on the other side. But more tempo to wear out this pass rush, more tempo to get into quick game, more tempo to just kind of dictate how the game is going to go. And again, this could backfire very badly, but I don't think you have many other great options. And so if you have this timing, which you don't have to go no huddle tempo all the time, but you could use it sporadically in a way that Jacoby gets up, run, quick pass, do it again, gets to the line, stops. You get a check from the sideline, like a college offense. Like, take that time and use it to your advantage, because I just think that plays to his strength as a veteran, and it will try to negate some of the advantages for an otherwise fast-flowing defense, and has a very good pass rush. And now we're finally at the matchup that just has me. I'm shaking at home. Nick Bosa against, I don't care if it's Kane Wallace or Dramontre Jacobs, who again just came into our lives, has really not played any NFL football, is going to be going up against a guy who's a 4-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All-Pro, has 2 sacks, 6 quarterback hits this season. And if it's Jacobs, this is stat of the day from Zach Cox, my teammate at the Herald, he will be the Patriots' 13th different starting left tackle since the start of the 2022 season. So good luck to him. Besides wishing good luck, what is your plan for Bosa, who could single-handedly wreck this game? And even if the Patriots hold into a sack and 3 quarterback hits, like, that's a win for San Francisco.
By the way, quick shout out to Zach, who's now the your beat writer for the Boston Celtics over there at the Herald, but also bringing the noise with the football coverage as well, as we know how well involved he's been on the beat for years and years and years. Look, I'm help. I'm not like I'm sending one guy less than the pass into the routes. I'm chipping. I'm keeping it tight end in there. I'm just not. Unless your tape tells you, like, look, he's had the rib injury, which he said he aggravated last week prior to the game. Unless you realize early on that it's not the same guy, then I think that's how I think you have to plan like it is that guy, and maybe you adjust if he proves that he's not that guy. But if he is, like, he can. Alex is right. He can ruin a game, and you can't let him ruin the game. Without Hargrave up there, makes him a little bit less sort of a doomsday scenario on that defensive line challenging you. But like, if you're trotting out Jacobs or Lowe, like that's Wallace, that's a brutal matchup for any of those guys. That's a brutal matchup for the good tackles. So you're not running out good tackles right now.
So my plan for Nick Bosa, and I'm going to remember, I think it was Houston.
Kidnap him?
Sorry?
Kidnap him?
No, kidnap. Who played the Cowboys recently? And the remarks afterward was like, oh my God, this is the best plan Micah Parsons had ever seen. Like, completely took him out of the game. Oh, it was New Orleans. So that's another, Clint Kubiak, their offensive coordinator, is new this year, came from the 49ers staff. Alex Van Pelt, the bones of the offense are similar. But the point of that plan for the Saints in week 2, absolutely kicked the Cowboys' ass all over the place, was how many different things they threw at him, understanding, just like Bosa, he can wreck the game. And this is a staple of Patriots offense, is going back to Charlie Weiss and dealing with Dwight Freeney. Like great quarterbacks, you throw everything at the great pass rusher. You should not be comfortable there. We are going to run at you. We are going to run play action away from you. We are going to chip you. We are going to double team you. We're going to have trap blocks. We might chop block if we can. I want a rotating cast, a spin the dial offensively at that guy. So even if it causes him to hesitate for a split second, that's a split second that Jacoby Brissett has to get off a pass before inevitably he gets crunched into the earth through San Francisco and pops up somewhere in East Asia, because they need that. And that's going to happen. And so you have to keep him off balance. There's no way that Jamadri Jacobs should be one-on-one with Nick Bosa more than 8 times in this game. You just cannot have it. That is asking for trouble and arguably for a loss, because again, this is the biggest matchup in football, I think, in week 4.
When you say 8 times too, I hope you mean when they're running it to the complete opposite side of the field, such that you can just leave him over there on his own.
Yeah, like an 8 dropbacks. If it's 3-step boom, like whatever it is, or kneel downs, include those. I don't know. I'm with you. Like, he's too good of a player, and you've seen him do it against the best of the best, and you're not bringing the best of the best. So, there's no question that. We heard Alex today say, when he builds an offense and when they're working on the plan, it's like it starts with the quarterback. In this case, it starts with the quarterback, but it also goes over there when you're looking at Bosa saying, like, all right, well, whatever we're going to do with the quarterback, we got to make sure this guy isn't ruining the quarterback, because he'll ruin the quarterback, he'll ruin the game, and then you're flying home 1-3, which you may end up doing anyway, but make somebody else do it to you. We did not talk about receivers or tight ends. I don't feel particularly inclined to do that, just because you're talking about an offense that had fewer than 100 passing yards last week. You're talking about an offense that has not produced as many total yards as Brock Purdy has had passing yards. So I hope they feed Pop Douglas. I talked about him last week. I think you going with the quick game are hoping for the same, yes?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. And if play action hits, which I think needs to be a bigger part of this offense, granted they need to block it first, and that's been touch and go, that'll free up space over the middle of the field. Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper, there will be plays to be made. I just can't reliably tell you listening at home or watching or whatever, this is a key to the game, or this definitely will happen, because we saw Demario Douglas be in witness protection in weeks 1 and 2, and then the Patriots throw for less than 100 yards in week 3 when he started. So we'll all cross our fingers and hope the Patriots get to 150, which, by the way, if you think Jacoby Brissett is going to throw for more than 150 yards, go to Prize Picks, baby.
Wow.
Our second sponsor, where for the last week in September, you play Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. It's you against the numbers. That's it. There's no other players. It's just you, numbers, more or less. That's it. You can pick more than a half passing yard for Caleb Williams as one of your squares, and you just need 2 to 6. So you pick more than half a yard, because obviously he's going to have more than that. He completes 1 pass downfield. Boom, that's a win. All you need then is a win with another square, more or less in a stat projections. This is the simplest and fastest way to win money while you watch sports. You pick more or less, again, on 2 or more stat projections and see if you win. And here's the great part about it. They've got injury insurance. So unlike when you're playing fantasy and your guy goes down to the first quarter and then he's out and you get 0.14 points and you're kind of screwed for the week, your lineup can still survive at Prize Picks, where you can also win up to 100 times your money with as few as 4 correct picks. And I will help you get there, ideally. Season record, for the record, 2-4. We were 2-0 last week, baby. But first, before I give you those picks, you need to download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS, not for $20, not for $30, not for $40, $50 bonus when you play just $5. 50. Thank you. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks. You get $50 instantly, win or lose when you play $5. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Okay, the Prize Picks of the week, and then we're going to get to 3 matchups, 2 keys, 1 wild card thought, a prediction, get out of here, which sounds like a lot, but we're going to go much quicker than we have so far. My Prize Picks of the week, more than 69.5 total yards for Ramondre Stevenson. I just have to hope and pray to your God of choice that he holds onto the football. If he does, there are a lot of checkdowns to be had. There are rushing yards I think they're going to pick up more than they did against the Jets. Pair that with more than half a passing yard for Caleb Williams, and pair it also with more than 9.5 rush yards for Brock Purdy, who has rushed for more than 9.5 yards in every single game this season. Not to mention, what is the Patriots' big problem on defense right now? Oh, keeping the quarterback in the pocket. I think they'll be better, but not good enough to keep Brock Purdy from going 30 feet and getting more than 9.5 rushing yards. So there you go. Caleb Williams, more than half a passing yard. Ramondre Stevenson, more than 69.5 total yards. Brock Purdy, more than 9.5 rush yards. Thank you very much, Mike Giardi.
Fantastic. I have 2 for you.
Oh, good.
2?
Yes.
Chase Brown, running back for the Bengals.
Ooh.
9.5 yards receiving, more than. And Joe Burrow in that same game, sticking with that same game, more than 11.5 yards rushing. Take it to the bank.
Who are they playing?
If it doesn't go to the bank, blame Callahan.
Who is Cincy playing?
Carolina.
Oh my God! Take Bengals more everything. I don't know. More fans in the stands. I don't even care if that's in Charlotte.
That also is possible. Yes.
Take Bengals more than. Okay, let's get to the 3-2-1 matchup. Again, folks who are new, 3 matchups, 2 keys, 1 wild card thought into prediction. 3 matchups. I think we can agree Nick Bosa versus Caden Wallace or Demontre Jacobs is number 1 on this list. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, we just talked about them. Next matchup.
Devondre Campbell, who's one of the inside linebackers for the 49ers, has not played particularly well. They tried to replace him during the last game. The replacement got hurt. I believe it was a hamstring. So I think it's Winters is the guy's name. So questionable. He had to come back out there. He has been nothing remotely like the guy he was in Green Bay before he fell out of favor in Green Bay. And when you combine that with Hargrave's absence, there might be a little path right there to shove the ball down their throats.
Sounds good. That sounds great.
You want it quick? I gave you quick.
Yeah,
doesn't matter whether it's the guard, the center. Get after it.
Well, in that spirit, I'm going to pick Keon White, where I think you and I are in agreement. He'll be parked mostly on the defense's left or across from the 49ers right tackle. You're going to pick and play matchup ball. If they want to run the other way, that's cool. We'll load up over there because Keon White's your best defensive player right now. All due respect to Christian Gonzalez. That's what he's playing like. And the Patriots need him to have a big game if they're going to win. Keon White versus whatever 49ers offensive lineman he's facing, Nick Bosa versus Demontre Jacobs or Caden Wallace. And then not your guy, Devondre Campbell against Ramondre Stevenson, who I will say this, only broke 2 tackles against the Jets. I'm not sure that number is going to be much higher because the Niners are the 3rd best tackling team in the league right now, according to the PFF, and PFF, grain of salt, yada, yada. But your top 3, you're not probably by any metric out of the top 10 or 12. So they're a sure tackling team. 2 keys. What do you got?
So I look at San Francisco's running game and I say, can you hold them to under 4 yards a rush, which is not easy. But like, if you want to sort of control the way they operate and take that part of their game away, put more on Purdy with, yes, an underperforming Ayuk, Jennings, who you may have answers for if you decide to match up with Gonzalez, and then not expecting Kittle, unsure about Deebo Samuel, but like, even if they are out there, are they going to be themselves? And when Samuel's not out there, Bell's been their 3rd receiver, and he has been hot garbage. Ball hit him off the face mask the other day, could have won him the game. Like, there's a big drop off between Ayuk, Jennings, and who's next when Debo's not there.
I think that's fair. Mine is block Fred Warner. Again, we talk about blocking Nick Bosa. When you're running the football, if he's got 12, 13, 14, 15 tackles or more, it's probably bad news. You need to get to the third level, make their safeties tackles, involve their corners in the run game. And whether it's David Andrews or Layden Robinson or City So, who hopefully comes back this week, and he's practiced 3 times already, Monday, Wednesday, now Thursday, they need to get to Fred Warner and lock him up and hold on and don't let go, because he is the biggest threat to Ramondre Stevenson, aside from whomever is up front. 3 forced fumbles, bunch of tackles, all pros, all that. Block Fred Warner in the run game.
Yeah, that's a concerning matchup just in terms of, like, as you mentioned, City hasn't played for a while. So him getting his legs underneath him, the guy that's been starting, Michael Jordan, has been out with injury. So you're not sure he's going to be available in the game, because I would imagine you probably want to at least get City some rest during the course of a game, if that's the case, and you might not have Jordan. And then obviously Layden Robinson, it's been a roller coaster. He's been awfully good at times, and he's been awfully bad at times, and that's what you get when you have a rookie in the lineup. Yeah.
Wild card thought. This is anything tangential to the game. Another matchup, something on the field, off the field, history, whatever it is.
Dwight Clark was one of my favorite receivers of all time.
Cool.
Yeah. Absolutely phenomenal. I had the picture of the catch was on my wall for eons. I think I even brought it to college with me. Like, that's how long that stayed with me.
This isn't why you always told me your best friend growing up was Dwight, is it? The poster?
You weren't supposed to say that out loud to the people. So, like, yeah, back in the day, Andrew, because again, I'm significantly older than you. We didn't have the options to watch all these games. There was a game, and the Patriots were almost never on because they were blacked out, because they couldn't sell out the damn place because they stunk. So you got a lot of Giants games, and then the late window was usually San Francisco or Dallas, and you would get that as the other game. So there was a period of time in which I had adopted the 49ers as my team because, again, we didn't have the ability. There was no internet. There was not all these things where you could watch other teams and clips and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, Dwight Clark, that was my dude for a long time.
So that has inspired me to offer a different wild card thought, but I'll say the other one while I look up the name of the book that I want to share, at least give credit to the author. This is a new stadium for me. I don't have many of these left. Never been to San Francisco. Patriots haven't been there. Never been to their stadium, which is really Santa Clara, as we know. You don't love it, no. which is cool. But I'm excited to go. I know David Andrews is excited to go because he's checked off a couple of new stadiums this year, never played in Cincinnati. And those are the small things where, again, if this is, we're starting down the path we all expected to go at the beginning of the season, 3-14, 4-13, you got to count the little victories or the little things along the way. Like, I'm sorry. I'm so excited for this trip. We're flying out tomorrow. We're going to stay over Friday night, Saturday night, and then take a red-eye home Sunday. And I'm going to go to a Giants game. And we're going to have a lot of travel tales after this, which is just not me getting a little drunk with, my wife's cousin and her new boyfriend and uncle and having a great time. It will be a lot of stuff out there in San Francisco, including this new stadium, which will have a full breakdown. Now, the other one I just thought of, since you brought up Dwight Clark, I read a biography of Bill Walsh called The Genius. It's written by David Harris. Outstanding. There's a lot of stuff in here, too, I will say, for Patriots fans. You'll see ideas that Belichick became known for that Bill Walsh really installed first and then wrote in his basically his coaching manual called The Winning Edge, which has become a very rare, sought-after book. I have a copy in coaching circles across the NFL. Seth Wickersham wrote an awesome article about this book. Anyway, some of those ideas and concepts, cutting players a year too early versus too late, they're all in The Genius. They're in The Winning Edge. So pick up The Genius if you can. It's about Bill Walsh, the Niners. Really, really, really good read, even if you don't care about the Niners or have never been to their stadium. So there you go. Prediction time. What you got?
24-13 49ers.
So you're doing they cover it, but just barely.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I don't think the Patriots were as bad as what we saw on Thursday night. I expect a more representative effort, a tougher effort, a more physical effort, significantly less mistakes defensively in terms of the simple things like tackling. And I think, we're Debo, McCaffrey, Kittle, were Ayuk, the Ayuk of last year, like those sorts of things, then I would say this is like a 37-13 runaway. But You're catching them. If you can catch them at a good time, this is about the best time you can catch them at. And I think they keep it relatively close.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Good teams, you want to get them early in the season before they build this habit, settle into who they are. The injury things are one part. I mean, you'd love to have Juwan Bentley for this game. Don't get me wrong. So it's not like the Patriots timing is great. Very low. Now this savior of the offense that everyone was poo-pooing whatever they could. You're hoping to have. They won't, probably. And we're going to get the injury report after we finish recording because it's still not 7 o'clock yet. I'm going to go 26-10. This has a very similar feel. I think it will play out in a way like the last or 2 times ago when they were 10.5-point dogs. They were at Kansas City in 2020, and they're hanging around for 3 quarters, and it's a good plan. They had some screw-ups in the red zone, and the Chiefs get a defensive score. And the whole game, you're like, I can't believe they're doing this. And then you just kind of let the rope go at the end. But that was the exact score of that game. I think it's going to be the same one this time around because I think their defense will hold up. But we know the Niners are committed to running the ball over and over and over again. I think it's just going to wear down a Patriots team that just doesn't have the depth right now to withstand it in a way that San Francisco, in addition to the star power, can just bring up guys from their second string that are better than your starters. And it just wears you out.
I have one final note to all this. We didn't really talk about Brock Purdy. Like it's sort of like the piece of the puzzle. He's really good.
He's really good.
He's not Mahomes, obviously, or Josh or Lamar. Like he's not in that class, but he operates that offense so efficiently. And he cleaned up his delivery a little bit. It's a little shorter, it's a little quicker. He's playing at a really high level. He's good. He's good. He's going to get paid. And like some of these guys that get paid, you're like, do you really want to do that? And I'm sure there'll be some people who say the same thing. I think he's a perfect fit for what they're doing.
Yeah, athletic enough, good processor, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. Like they're winning with and because of him. He's not driving the whole thing, obviously, but I think that's one where we don't have to make it so binary. Is it Brock Purdy or is it not? Like everyone's contributing, and he's contributing now, specifically more than he did before. Say a game like at Minnesota. They could have lost that early if he'd lost his mind against all of the spinning pressures that Minnesota was throwing at him. But anyway, he's never been better as far as I can see. Great under pressure. I'm with you. Probably should have talked a little bit more about the opposing quarterback.
No. There's so many other things, but like he's just a good player. He's just become one of those guys. You're like, I'm surprised if I look at a box score now. I'm like, oh, Purdy had a bad game. Like I don't really see that from him.
Yeah. Another good player coming up to wrap up this episode, Kyle Duggar on a 4-minute drill. You get to learn that he was an excellent breaker-upper back in the day, and he'll take you inside a captain's meeting just barely. It's the last question we had from him from the locker room. We will be back next week. More new guests. We'll have Phil Mondays based on everything that happened. Until then, say goodbye to Mike Giardi. Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Wrapping up another episode, as promised. Kyle Duggar here for a 4-minute drill. You know the drill. Football questions on football questions. We start the clock. We get out of here. Here we go. Number 1. If you could hit this teammate every single day in practice, who would it be?
Hit his teammate. Pop.
Pop? Why?
Yeah, Pop talk a lot.
Okay. Kyle Duggar gets into an Uber. Do you share when someone asks inevitably, oh, what do you do for a living? Do you an NFL player? Or how do you handle the Uber?
I say I play ball. Typically, I don't really share unless they keep digging. I don't want to lie. But I don't share at first.
You don't lie at all?
I don't like to lie, nah.
Because ball only invites more questions, right? Is it baseball? Is it football? Basketball?
Sometimes, some people you can tell they want to ask questions, but they don't. And those are usually the people I appreciate. But yeah, it depends.
All right, name an opponent you played against you find is super underrated by the media?
Ooh, an opponent? You're going to have to give me some time for that one. Yeah, I would have to think about it. I can't really think of anybody off the top.
Okay, we'll come back to it. Going back to non-football, what's something in your house as a parent you do that makes you either a good cop or a bad cop? And are you a good cop or a bad cop at home?
I'm definitely bad cop, for sure.
Why?
Because when I come home, my son at 2 already knows, like, he gets to look, like he knows I'm going to be on him pretty tough about things. Like, I'll make my 2-year-old, like, clean up, like, messes, like, and, like, stand there until he finishes cleaning it, because he's really smart, so I know he can do it. And I don't think he appreciates that too much, but I got to do it.
That sounds like something you had to do.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, chores was a non-negotiable. Yeah.
Okay, let's say you hear something in the media and you stand next to them until they get this right. What's something that's a misconception or it's been said that you want them to clean up that mess? Something you could clean up for good. We say this, it's not true about football.
About football or myself?
About football.
I would say just how easy it is in general. Like I feel like a lot of people when they watch it, they're like, oh, it's easy, just do this. See it this way. It should be easy to see. So I think just like seeing things how they are and how they look to us on the field is a big difference between the media and ourselves. And I don't think it's as easy as they may think it is.
Okay, this just in from Kyle Duggar. Football, very, very hard, and he's excellent at it. Belichick lowlights are famous here, the tapes they used to play in meetings. Can you take us to one moment where you got roasted in particular? What was the game? What did Bill say? How did you feel when that came up?
So when we played the Raiders last year, I had to play in the middle of the field where I dove down to cover Devontae Adams unprovoked. There was no reason to do so, and left the middle of the field wide open. And, yeah, he laid into me pretty good just far as, let me know that I was basically as bad as it gets, at that position, and let me know that was an awful mistake that I made. So
You're smiling, but that stung.
It hurt pretty good. I mean, good pain. I say that. I learned from it.
All right, getting close to the end. When Kyle Duggar in the past broke up with someone, how did he deliver the news?
Face to face. Face to face.
Okay, let's do it right now. We're face to face.
I mean, I ain't breaking up with you. I don't, I can't really reenact it.
Can't? Nah. Quick conversation, long one. Are you listening for a while?
Yeah, it was a long convo. I try to stick in there for every question, be authentic, but it was tough. It was real tough.
All right, we got 20 seconds. We'll skip the opponent question for later. You were named a captain today. First of all, congratulations. Second of all, you've been in a captain's meeting now. 10 seconds. Tell us one thing in there that people wouldn't know about.
I can't do that. I can't just be giving. It's a very open conversation. I'll say that. It's not like one guy and everybody just like kind of, listen. It's a very open talk. And it's I think everybody's very, very receptive in there. And I don't think most people would think it'd be like that, especially with the head coach in the meeting. So I think that's one thing people might not expect.
Well, we go over for the first time in 4-minute drill history, but that's because Kyle, as you said, likes the long conversations, whether it's breaking up with you or staying together here with me. Kyle, appreciate the time, man. Best luck on Sunday.